the production studios of Epic Financial Strategies here in Red Bank, New Jersey, we are Infinity X, giving a stage and microphone to human excellence in the constant, never-ending pursuit of creating ecosystem merger opportunities and giving you access to infinite sales ideas by giving a stage and microphone to people who have been there and done that. And guys, tonight is absolutely no different. We're being welcomed this evening by Dan Neissany. Dan, how you doing this evening, brother?
All right, pleasure.
Pleasure's mine, man. Thank you very much. Folks, I've had the good fortune of getting to know Dan over the past really 4 years now. Dan had worked for a number of years with and consulting to New Jersey Spine. The formal name of the practice is
NJ Spine and Wellness.
NJ Spine and Wellness, multiple locations throughout the state of New Jersey. Dan is taking our stage this evening for a couple of different reasons. If you own a business, you recognize the fact that from a profitability standpoint, you're as profitable as your people, right? And essentially, especially with what's transpired with COVID and what's transpired over the past 3 or 4 years, maintaining employee morale, maintaining employee productivity, and maintaining a sense of teaming has probably never been as challenging, if that's a fair statement.
Yeah,
as it is in this day and age. And one of the areas that Dan is a peak performance, I'm going to call it peak performance consultant in, is team building, is consulting, is breaking down P&L, and making sure that from a culture perspective, that businesses are not only profitable, but that the employee morale is such that the individual employees are essentially optimizing their employment experience. But ladies and gentlemen, he is also launching a completely new mastermind and platform, which essentially is going to be the golden nuggets and the keys to the castle of how to rinse and repeat this and adopt it for your business, right? So, Dan, do me a favor, just give the good folks out there a little bit of your background. You came from New Jersey Spine. You've now since relocated out to Vegas, but just give the folks a little bit of background about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me here, number one.
Of course, bro.
Honestly, like I would say, my journey, traditional business background started within the last 10 years, but really, I look back and realized that my journey really started with my parents, who had a small business for 37 years.
What type of business was it?
It was a mom and pop bagel shop business, and they started off in good old Woodbridge Mall.
Oh, nice.
And relocated to another location in Woodbridge where they had for over 20 years. Okay. And that really laid the groundwork for really who I am as a person and how I approach what I do day to day. So
that's not an easy business either, right? I mean,
that's why I didn't want to go into it. I didn't want to get up at 3:30 in the morning and work till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, which is what they did day in and day out. So that really set the stages. And within the last 10 years, being in healthcare and being surrounded by numbers and people and understanding how to really connect the dots between, kind of like you said, P&L, revenue, which, healthcare, unfortunately, is still a business.
Yep.
And if you're not making money, you're not employing people, and you're not keeping people. And
practice mastery, right?
That's exactly it.
100%.
So taking all that and then just figuring out how to connect it with how to build up your team and how to really, empower and build more leaders. So over time, people are not leaving, retention goes down. And really how to build a business through the people that you're with day to day.
Yeah, and what led you into healthcare? Right, because they're totally different than the business exposure that you had growing
100%.
up, right? Yeah. So what led you there?
Just really how to help people get better from a standpoint of physical pain, and having a background in athletics where you're younger, you're always kind of, as a young male, you have these everybody I think is shooting the winning jump shot in the backyard.
Yeah.
Getting an idea of, hey, maybe I want to do that, and then understanding, okay, I'm 5'4", so like that's probably not going to be the best way to do it.
Muggsy Bogues made it work,
you know what I mean?
So,
one in a billion, that guy. But looking at how to work with athletes, and then really understanding how to just help more people. And as much as there's a lot of emotional pain going on nowadays, unfortunately, there's always been people in physical pain.
Yeah.
That does take away from quality of life. So
were you with like an athletic training department in college, or
a bit? I had my own injuries, and being able to see how physical therapists or athletic trainers work to get me back, it's kind of what led me down that path.
Got it.
And just, generally speaking, being able to work with a multitude of individuals who, unfortunately, their pain took over their life. And once you can strip away that pain and get a quality of life back, you can see a major change in their whole life. So that's really what led me down that path. Going into, technically I have a doctorate in physical therapy, and being able to work with a multitude of physicians and chiropractors and occupational therapists and a whole bunch of different types of specialties. It was really eye-opening to see a lot of different approaches.
That's incredible. Should I call you Doc, by the way?
No, please don't. It's okay.
So you spent 10 years here at New Jersey Spine and Wellness.
Yep.
And tell me a little bit about that experience. I mean, shout out to Nick Bufano and everybody at New Jersey Spine and Wellness. You guys are doing incredible things. But what was that experience like? And and how did your, your role and your responsibility evolve during your time there? Because I think that's really relevant to where you're at now.
Yeah, it's very significant. So the beautiful thing about working there is really twofold. One is, as I said, just being surrounded by different types of medical practitioners. It does give you a different perspective on how to get people better. But realistically, the biggest advantage for myself was just the availability in which the business was there for me to see. So if whatever questions I had was available. I always look at certain owners or managers where they don't want to share their secrets, secret sauce with their employees because they're afraid, hey, what if you're going to take my secrets and
then go and run someplace else?
You're going to go to the next town over
Yeah.
and steal all my business. And there was honestly the opposite. It was whatever you want to know, we'll show you. And that really was eye-opening to A, hear that, and then B, to actually see what was going on behind closed door, so to speak, to see, all right, well, how do we actually do this? How do we create revenue? How do we structure out simple stuff like bonuses? Like, what determines all that? And how do we get paid from insurance companies? So being able to really see that and want to learn it and have somebody who said, I want you to learn it if you're willing to, was really advantageous for me, and gave me a huge opportunity that, honestly, I don't think I really would have gotten anywhere else. And I certainly have a lot of friends in the business, and honestly, they're not given that opportunity. Yeah. And their growth is also limited. And I also see how it limits the business owners because they're stuck now doing everything because they're too afraid to share it.
Well, and what that creates also is turnover, right? Because if you don't see the future of being able to be in a stepped-up either leadership role or an equity partnership opportunity or something like that, what are you going to do? You're going to leave, right? 100%. So I'm so fascinated by this. So what was, because to your point, many people, either entrepreneurs, business owners, right? They're very, very protected of the shield, right? And they're very, very protective of intellectual property. It sounds like that was an environment and a culture where it was just the polar opposite, right? Now, as a result, what did you find, like, as you're talking about, okay, how do we create bonuses? But what did you find from an employee morale perspective there, as opposed to other businesses that you've seen or you've consulted, or your friends of yours that are in different positions?
That's a great question because honestly, I would say it kind of stunk initially, and that is including myself. Like, I really look back and when I evaluate where I'm at and like where I've gotten to compared to where I was, I always think I was kind of on the pardon language, kind of on the shitty side of being a really good leader. It was just more about telling people versus helping them understand the thought process behind what we were trying to do. And so the culture and the environment was good only because of the people that were there. They got along together and they wanted to make it work. And I find that's where still a lot of people, like, I like the people I work with, but I kind of hate the place I work for. It wasn't that, but I know there was a lot of questions on my part of why am I having trouble getting the employees to understand what I know is the right way to do, and it was just the teaching methods were honestly terrible. And like I said, people want to know, and for me it was just do it because I put in the work, so you should just go along with that. I know what's best. And it's like a very old school, I get it, like that was like kind of the way it was done. It was just like, hey, the manager says do it as we do it. But it took me a while to understand people want to know why, which is, I totally understand that now. And so the evolution, it was a lot of days of me questioning the employees, and then there's a lot of days too of me questioning myself and leaving the company at the end of the night saying, what the hell am I doing? Or am I failing people? Am I a failure? And so it took a long time to not see the results that I was looking for before I just really started looking at myself as maybe I was the thing holding them back.
Yeah.
So the second, that's where, not to cut you off, but that was kind of like the second major part of my development was just myself, like working on myself, which I always kind of looked at as being selfish, and taking time away from other people. And I needed to work on,
Absolutely
and I see that so often now,
Absolutely
like
not.
if I work on myself and step away a little bit from everybody else, am I being selfish? And I realized I needed to do that in order to help them out. And that's really what was the separator. And so the last like 4 or 5 years I was in the company, the environment got better and better and better. And it's simply because of my ability to connect with people better.
I love that.
And understand them better.
And let's play in that space for a moment, because you're reading my mind right now. So, folks, when you invest into yourself, all right, Dan said something that is really, really, really relevant. He was originally looking at that as a selfish act. It is the most selfless act. If you're in a position of leadership, it is the most selfless act that there is, because if your focus and your attention on self-mastery is about how you can broaden leadership skills, because what's the old adage? You could be the best player and the worst coach, right? The greatest salespeople make the worst managers.
How it is.
Right? And in most cases, that's how it is. You invested in yourself in self-mastery and practice and personal development through the Tony Robbins ecosystem, did you not?
I did.
Tell me a little bit more about that, and where was the mindset shift as a result of the work that you did there?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. Like just some things like just click. Like you hear somebody give a speech or something happens and you're like, oh shit, like I get it now.
Yeah.
And honestly, like being introduced into that material and just a lot of the concepts, like it was just stuff that resonated with me. And I felt like that was the missing link. I was like, what he's talking about is what I'm not doing and what is causing some issues with me. And I always remember the day. It was like just a Saturday night, which was the third day of his introductory seminar.
Yep.
And like,
UPW?
I literally just emailed the person in charge of schedule. I was like, take me off the schedule right now. I was like, I'm not treating patients anymore. I was like, I need to step away and spend more time working on like myself and the staff. But honestly, the process was just me, and it's still undergoing, and it's never. I think one of the things to really understand is that as good as we all get, there's always room to get better.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
And that's where it's been at the last few years. It's just going to more seminars, and really educating myself, podcasts, books. And I'm a big believer. It's just for me. I always learn better like actually going to live events and being able to engage with people.
Sure.
And get feedback about ways to improve myself in terms of communication, listening skills. So those, that was really what Launchman is just finding that right voice.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of the things that I always, communicate to people that I'm working with is just go with who communicates well with you. Like what resonates with you. Tony Robbins might not work for you. Maybe it's somebody like Brendan Bouchard or whoever it may be. It's just, you got to find out what makes sense to you. But you got to work on yourself, and you have no right trying to help other people if you're not helping you.
Phenomenal. Folks, we are Infinity X, stage and microphone with human excellence. This is Dan Neissany. We're talking about all things self-mastery, all things leadership development, and replay weareinfinityx.com, We Are Infinity X YouTube. And Dan, so you began to put in the self-mastery work, right, the self-developmental work, and you saw a mindset shift, right? You saw a mindset shift in yourself, and you started to see a mindset shift internally with the employees. And the 4 years that would proceed afterwards, you saw some of the greatest growth in the history of the company, I would imagine, right? And then you made a strategic decision to separate from service. So talk a little bit, or not necessarily separate, but change the leadership role that you are operating in. So tell us a little bit more about like what were the next steps after that.
Yeah, so I mean, in reality, it was just about more giving yourself to other people. So for me, and I think for a lot of people who are in business, you invest so much of just, I gotta do, you're the producer. It's like, I gotta do.
Yep.
And then, all right, whatever I have left over, I can dedicate to everybody else. So it's just a matter of, do you want to help who you're working with as best you can through serving them, or are you serving, it's almost like I look at it like, are you serving the product, or are you serving the people that are making the product? So the product for me was outcomes with patients. And I could either focus on the patients that I was treating directly, or I could focus on helping everybody else and their patients. So it's just really being able to increase the output and the outcomes by just that many more times. So it's really what it looked like was more interactions, more meetings. And when I say meetings, like, so there's obviously, that's one of the things that I've probably gotten a little out of control with business. It's just, hey, let's get a meeting to schedule a meeting. Yeah. But it was just more about check-ins. And that was really one of the things that I used to do not at all was, or if I did, it was very impersonal. And you feel like I have to just ask, how are you doing today? But do you actually really care about asking that?
Interesting.
And it was one of the things that getting to the point where I could just sit down with a staff member and checking in, how's your day going? What do you need from me?
That time doesn't exist during the workday.
Nah,
in most cases,
it's tough.
It really is.
It's definitely challenging to find,
especially in a busy environment like physical therapy office. I mean, I can't. It's
run and
go
gun all day.
Go. Yeah, of course.
So it's just really having more staff check-ins, and I guess it was almost. I kind of looked at it almost like not an HR type of role, but kind of like the same mentality of, are they okay? What do they need from me, and how do I best serve them? And I just really got to a point where I knew I couldn't do that when I was just really focused on myself, and when I was at least working directly with patients, I was just focused on them, which is good for them.
Right, of course.
I got amazing outcomes. Which if you're in that type of field or you're a doctor, like I get great outcomes with my patients. But what are you sacrificing with that mentality? So it was a lot more team building, and it's not. When I say team building, it's not even in the sense of like, hey, we're going out and we're doing these activities. It's just for me, team building was. Do you feel supported by me? Do you feel that if you're having issues, you can come to me and discuss it and we can work it out? Or is the other type of management style where I'm almost like fearful to approach that person? And that's what I wanted to try to really reverse. And that's what I ended up, I think really doing at a high level was just building out a team that not even just come to me, because eventually, we can't rely on ourselves for everything. Things happen, people leave, people die, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's how do you set the stage for the next people to step up, and it was really being able to create an environment where everybody can keep themselves accountable, and they could all have the conversations and help each other out and not have to just rely on one person like we often do in business, and really just creating an environment where we're all working for the same goal.
So you relocated, right? You made the strategic decision to relocate out to Las Vegas. What spurred that decision, and what are you up to out there?
So aside from New Jersey taxes,
lack thereof.
Yeah, lack thereof. No, I mean, one of the things, and this is critical for a lot of people, is a bit within the business itself. I kind of plateaued, which was a good problem to have. Yeah, it was a good problem because I really got very far within the company, and I really love what they allowed me to do. But I just got to a point where I kind of maxed out on what I could do, and I really started looking at it saying, am I actually holding some other people back by still being here? Am I preventing people from their growth?
It's not an easy recognition to come to either.
No, so it's it's just one of those things. And then honestly, like even being married, which is amazing. My wife's never been a huge fan of New Jersey, even though she was born in the States. So we just started looking at what are our options, and being strategic about it. So it's not just pack up and move and then, hey, let's figure it out later. It's where's their state where there's maybe some tax advantages, the weather is better.
Right.
There's a lot going on business-wise, and, creating a whole checklist of things, and Vegas hit every checklist for us, and we don't gamble, so, and everybody's like, oh, did you got there because you gamble?
I hear that more and more, actually.
Yeah, it's like, you're a gambler. It's like, we don't gamble at all. There's just a lot of opportunities.
Seen one casino, seen them all.
That's exactly it. So that's what kind of took us out west. And then obviously, it's not the mindset of like a lot of people during COVID is the work that we're doing now over computer, you can obviously do that. Yeah, you can do that from anywhere anyway. So why not enjoy where you're living? And that was it.
So what are you up to now?
So I'm still actually consulting for NJ Spine and Wellness. So I'm really working with team members one-on-one, building out either professional development or personal development, which has actually been probably more productive over the last year than it was when I was there. And I
time blocking.
Yeah, because I
totally.
feel like it's just one of those things like, you check in here and there, whereas like you're 2,500 miles away, so you need to dedicate 1 hour specifically every week. And so I've had better conversations, honestly, with probably most of the staff than I ever did the whole time I was there. And then building out really just business consulting and just honestly doing real estate investment as well. So
let's talk about the business consulting here a little bit, folks. So replay, weareinfinityx.com, We Are Infinity X YouTube. This is Dan Neissany, and you are now you're involved in a mastermind that is centered around what? Business coaching, business development?
A little bit of business, a little bit of real estate. So it's kind of a good little mix.
Okay. And you're in the process of developing a leadership curriculum that is going to be centered on essentially rinsing and repeating what you have been able to accomplish with morale boost and employee retention at NJ Spine. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Honestly, like the biggest thing I look at with business, I feel like there's kind of two sides of it. You have like the camp that focuses a lot on just simply structuring and creating protocols and systems. And then you have the
Is this specific to med, or is this universal?
Yeah, it's universal. Because then you have the other camp that's all about culture and identity. And really, it's about both.
Yeah.
You know, it's how do you still understand, like, hey, look, if we're not making money, we're not open, like I said before. But then how do you create an environment that people actually want to show up to work?
Right.
Right. And that I feel is like the win-win. When they want to be part of the business, they want to understand it. They want to help you grow versus, hey, I'm making you money. Why don't I get a bigger share of that? It's just how to put the two together. So that's really, bridging the gap between the two is what I'm really focusing on, and not just creating a great culture and a great climate, but how to, link it up with understanding some of the P&L as well. And just really those, things that we don't like to talk about anymore, like KPIs and business metrics. Like those are important. It shouldn't be the end all be all.
In many cases, it's made to be the end all be all.
That's usually how you're being measured.
Right.
A lot of times, but it's how do you measure the things that aren't on a spreadsheet as well. So it's putting those two together is really what I've been passionate about. And honestly, it did take me some time to figure that out. I think we all do dumb crap that we sometimes regret, or we're trying to find our way, and it's what makes the most sense, and understanding what are we really good at and how to identify our own value. And that's what it just honestly it did take me some time after moving out to Vegas to figure out what was my value, and even though like I could see it, I think a lot of us still question our own ability sometimes. And that's one of the things that I definitely was doing, is just questioning myself a lot, and it took me some time to figure that out, but this is where I'm at. So I'm really happy to help a lot of individuals, because again, having that small business background, I've seen a lot of the struggles of, you're successful, but is it the business running you versus you're running the business? Are you missing out on those, life events, your kids' parties or soccer games or whatever it may be, because you're at the, at work?
Yeah, because you didn't learn how to outsource yourself. And so, two-pronged question. Question number one is, there's a beta test that's out there for your curriculum, right? Talk a little bit about that number. And my second question after that will be, why do I retain you? Why am I going to retain your either your curriculum or your intellectual property? What gives you that value proposition that business owners are going to want to pick up the phone, want to connect with you? Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so in beta testing, you can find on mastermind.com.
Mastermind.com, ladies and gentlemen.
And that is a platform actually launched by Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. So two guys who know a little bit about business,
just a tiny little
and helping
bit.
people, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then from a standpoint of myself, realistically, as I said, I spent a lot of time on myself and on the content and on the material. And realistically, it's about accountability. And for myself, to relate to other people, I just want to be honest with you and tell you where we need to get better. And that's one of the things that I don't want to waste people's time. I think that is one of the most, that might be the greatest commodity now, is our time. So how do we get the results as fast as possible? And it's not about, BSing and, playing games. It's just about, here's what we have to do to get better. Here's how do we get results, so that's the thing for myself, is having the knowledge, having the experience, having the energy behind them. And I love this aspect of business in the sense of, the growth and development and developing teams and developing future leaders, and, realizing that the more we can help the people that are working with us, it actually allows you to enjoy the business a lot better. I never really thought about this up until recently, but I tend to wonder sometimes if my life, as great as it is, like what would have been like if my parents actually were able to do some of this as well, create some better systems,
of course.
And, better scaling, and instead of selling their business, maybe being able to keep it and bring some people on that could have helped them still retain the business that I know they poured their proverbial sweat and blood into.
Right.
So that's where it is for me. It's just the amount of time and energy I spend into getting to this point and starting from scratch and being a terrible leader. Honestly,
I find that so hard to freaking
yeah,
believe, bro.
I look back and I'm just like, I was such crap.
Oh, please. Yeah.
and-
I just literally don't see it. But you know what? Honestly,
Yeah.
your personal recognition and the work and the effort that you've put in the time that I've even known you is remarkable.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Self-reflection to become a better leader, I think just like, again, defines the leader. You know, totally 150%.
You don't see it a lot because unfortunately, there are a lot of people who manage with ego. And
Yeah.
a lot of insecurities, and that really does.
Yep.
It puts a lot of restrictions on acknowledging where are areas that I can get better at, instead of walking around saying I'm great and just do what I say.
Right.
So that's why I love working with people and just helping them create structures, and also identifying not just areas of weaknesses, because we do tend to focus on everything that we're poor at, but also understanding what are we actually good at, and how to actually teach people what we're good at.
And how do you accentuate and double down on
So
that?
kind of like
too?
your example of that star athlete who's the terrible coach.
Yeah.
They have like a lot of natural skills, and they don't understand what got them necessarily outside of really hard work. You can teach that, so to speak, but I can't teach the guy to do a 360 dunk with the eyes closed and this and that. Like, that's just a skill that
will just not possess.
Yeah,
right?
so it's being able to also understand what do we do really well, and how do I do that, and how do I teach people to do that too.
I love it. I love it. Folks, replay weareinfinityx.com. We are Infinity X YouTube and on the Infinity X app. We've been joined here by Dan Neissany, doing unbelievable things in the areas of business consulting, coaching, peak performance leadership. The beta test for Dan's curriculum can be found, what's the website one more time?
Mastermind.com.
At mastermind.com. But little, final, as my buddy Sean Callaghy would say, right? A little final. You're also up to some real estate investing, brother.
Yes.
Talk a little bit more about what you're doing outside of the business consulting.
Yeah, so, real estate. How many ways you can go with that?
Yeah.
So that is, that's also, one of those really good things, is just knowing how to invest your money properly. And, I've been really blessed. Same thing, like, you always got to look back at your background and understanding what did my parents do, and some of the things they really instilled in me in terms of saving, and at least just trying to make some more money and not rely just on the income that you have.
Yep.
And taking that base knowledge and really expanding it. So looking at real estate as a great way for, not just wealth generation, but great things of tax savings.
Sure.
And
Sure,
so really
of
at this point, looking at apartments and looking at multifamily properties as a way to, and it's just not looking at things and not thinking you're too small to invest in something a little bit bigger, and that's just generally where we typically start. Maybe you have that person who's buying a single family house.
Yep.
Versus like, hey, let's just jump in and get an apartment building.
Got it. Yeah. So you're going for multiple doors.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, but was that going to be your primary focus going into it, or did you who did you model after, or who are you modeling after, and what were some of the influencers in your life or in your circle that pushed you towards multiple doors as opposed to single family?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I'm definitely a big believer in looking at people who have done it before you.
Yeah.
And just trying to say, all right, what did they do? And,
Right.
Realistically, it's just the understanding that when you look at, traditionally, it's the way the world's changing in terms of millionaires, but the traditional millionaires, a majority, 90%, I believe, they owned real estate.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
for me, as I was getting more mature within, business and just as a person, that just, it made sense. Like, if 90% of people who are the wealthiest people on the planet are doing this, there's got to be something to it.
Yeah.
So it's not to say you got to be the Grant Cardones of the world and have
Why not?
thousands of doors, but
Yeah.
even doing something small
Yep.
is going to go a long way. So it's really just trying to find what makes sense for you as a person.
You're also doing some non-traditional financing.
Yes.
And talk just 5 seconds on that.
No, it's okay. Honestly, I love that. Like, I love having different investments, and different ways to generate money, and certainly a big fan of not using necessarily your own money, but doing some non-traditional things like utilizing life insurance.
Woo! Love it. Yes, sir. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so just being able to, I have actually two different life insurance policies that pay me a nice dividend, and being able to generate some cash value out of that and using that to invest into properties, Honestly, it's very, very helpful because it's money that's already growing there. It's sitting there. It's nothing that I need to take out of the bank.
Yep.
And I do love, honestly, I love talking to people about those types of investments, especially, the life insurance, because it's just, it's nothing that we're taught. Like, you don't learn this stuff in school.
You do not. You do not.
It's unfortunately, like, the banks don't make as much money when you're putting into life insurance.
Nope.
So it's just ways to generate, wealth that are, it's not 20%, 25%, but it's stable. It's not changing. Certainly why my IRA is getting hammered, just like everybody else over the last 9 months or so.
Your cash value insurance policy didn't.
Those are going up.
Folks, what you need to understand is what Dan is talking about is when you structure an insurance policy the appropriate way, you can lend against it and not from it. And there's a big, big micro distinction between the two of them. When you're lending against it, your money actually continues to work for you inside of the insurance while it's also working for you where you lent it out to, which in Dan's case is being invested into multifamily units, whatever the actual investment is, back into your business, into real estate, wherever. Now is, and there's never been a more important time, or I don't want to say never, but this is one of the most important times that you're ever going to see where your money needs to keep pace and outpace inflation, because inflation is real. Double digits. Don't listen to anybody who says it's not double digits. Prices are up 13.6% year to date. It's not going away. And banks aren't paying you. Right? Banks aren't paying you. Wealthy people, right? And the wealthy and the majority of wealthy Americans got wealthy by learning the mastery and understanding of liquidity and leverage. And this man right here, Dan Neissany, is doing things at a super, super high level in that space. Folks, you want to pay attention to this man. Dan, any finals for the good folks out there?
Honestly, I would just say work on yourself. Work on yourself, check your ego, and know that we all can get better, and just continuously strive to better yourself so you can better everybody else.
Dan, it has been a blast, brother. I appreciate your friendship, man. I appreciate
Likewise.
Everything. God bless you, too, man.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for spending the past 40 minutes with us. We are Infinity X. Replay weareinfinityx.com. We are Infinity X YouTube and on the app. Each and every single week, we continue to give a stage and give a microphone to human excellence in the best way that we know how. And, Danny has just been another example of someone that you want to pay attention to, that you want to model after, because those who are operating at a high level in the market environment that we're in, he had mentioned his IRA getting hammered. The markets have been tumultuous. Interest rates have been tumultuous. Inflation has been tumultuous, and yet this man is expanding, right? Pay attention to what he's up to. Replay weareinfinityx.com. Thank you all for spending some time with us this evening. Appreciate you.